Hey guys, how are you? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hope everyone had a good long weekend. Hope everybody was able to enjoy the holiday. You had a good time. You were able to get some rest. You were able to make some deposits into yourself. And so I hope everybody had a good weekend, and just a good 4th of July holiday and all of that, able to spend some time with family and friends and just have a great day. Thanks for sharing, Michael. How are you, sir? And so we're going to go on and just go straight in today, and we're going to talk about, again, managing our emotions. And in order to survive our process, we have to be able to manage our emotions. And today what we're going to talk about in managing our emotions, we're going to talk about maintenance. We're going to talk about how to maintain the positions that we have allowed ourselves and the places that we've allowed ourselves to get to. A lot of times we have issues in managing our emotions because we have not put any actions, or we've not put anything in place to be able to help us to maintain the freedom that we've worked so hard to obtain. And so I know for me, in surviving my process, I've worked very, very hard to be able to get to the place of peace where I am, to be able to get to this place where I love who I am, to be able to get to the place where I can totally embrace who I am and how I can operate in my emotions from an honest place. And I've worked really, really hard to get here. And so I've made a decision. I've chose to be very intentional about maintaining that. And so today I'm challenging you to do the same thing. You have to put in place standards, or you have to put in place boundaries, or you have to put into place mechanisms that will allow you to be able to sustain where you have worked so hard to get. You can be all over the place in your emotions because you've not put things in place to be able to help you to sustain where you've come, to be able to help you sustain the place that you've worked so hard to get. For me, I worked very hard to get to this place of peace. I've worked very hard to get to this place of being comfortable with who I am. I've worked very hard to get to this place to be courageous and doing some of the things that I'm doing right now. I've worked very hard to get there. And so I've made a conscious choice, and I've made a conscious decision that I won't allow things or people to deter me from what I've worked so hard to obtain, what I've worked so hard, and so many gains that I've made emotionally and mentally, that there are just things that I have put in place that will allow me to be able to sustain it. And not only sustain it, but to be able to go even higher in where I am. And so today the challenge is for you to put things in place. And if you notice that today, part of the title talks about self-sabotage. And a lot of times we're not able to maintain our emotions or manage our emotions because of self-sabotage. It's one thing for a person to be a repeat offender against you. It's one thing for a situation to be a repeat offender, but it is something else when you become a repeat offender of yourself. And I've learned that I was a repeat offender of myself. I hurt my own feelings a lot of times over and over again because of the choices and the decisions that I would make. And so I chose, and I'm choosing, to no longer be a repeat offender of myself. I will no longer allow the decisions that I make to put me in a place where I don't want to be emotionally, where I don't want to be mentally, where I don't want to be, period. Because I've worked so very hard to get to where I am. And so the thing to think about right now is what things are going on with you? What things are you doing? What choices are you making? What actions are you taking? What things are you doing that are causing you to self-sabotage your ability to be able to manage your own emotions? What things are going on around you? What people are in your life? What situations are you connected to? What things have you connected yourself to that are enabling you, or inhibiting you, I should say, from being able to manage your emotions, to be able to maintain and sustain this place of peace, this place of comfort, this place of joy, this place of happiness that you've worked so hard, this place of emotional freedom, this place of mental freedom, this place of mental wellness and emotional wellness that you've worked so hard to obtain. What things and what situations and what people are in the way or are inhibiting you from being able to sustain it? And so for me, again, I've made the choice that no thing, no people, no situation will, again, inhibit me from being in this place that I've worked so hard to get to. You know, it took a lot. It took a lot of owning decisions that I made. It took looking at myself and examining my own motives in certain situations. It took for me to, you know, examine why I was in the place that I was in. And so if I'm going to manage my emotions, and I'm talking about me right now, but I put the challenge out to you as well. But if I'm going to manage my emotions, I am going to have to put things in place that are going to help me to maintain the freedom that I worked so hard to get. I've worked so hard to be able to say that I love me. I've worked so hard to be able to say that I'm at a peaceful place. I've worked so hard to be able to learn how to differentiate between being so defensive and being so angry all the time, as opposed to learning how to articulate and communicate those things that I don't like. And so learning how to get to this place and working so hard to get here, there is nothing or no one that I choose now to allow to take me away from this place. To take me away from this place. This is the place that I've always wanted to be in. This is the place that I've always desired to be in. And to even take it further, this is the place that God always desired for me to be in. You know, I've heard people say that, you know, well, I'm wired like this, or this is the way that I am, or this is what I do. And I've even said that myself. But what I had to understand and realize is that I was saying that because of the things that had happened to me, things that I had experienced, circumstances that I had experienced. And so really, it wasn't that I was created to be angry, or I was created to be this person who, you know, would never be emotionally present. I wasn't created to be like that. I wasn't wired to be that way. Because I've been created in the image and in the likeness of God. And so God is always emotionally present with me. You know, he's not this angry, judgmental God. And so for me to say that I was created to be, or I just was wired to be this person who would be emotionally detached from situations, or who would just automatically withdraw and cut people off without any type of explanation, is untrue. I wasn't created to be that way. I was conditioned to be that way. And there's a big difference. There's a big difference in being created and being conditioned. And for some of us, what we've done is we've allowed our circumstances and our situations to condition us to be in a certain way, to condition us to operate in a certain way, in our relationships, in our families, in our businesses, whatever it may be. We've been conditioned to do certain things. And so I would challenge you today to examine that. Examine that. You know, when you're saying I'm wired like this, are you really wired? You really think that you're wired to be this person who's not emotionally present? Do you really think that you've been wired to be this person who doesn't know how to manage their emotions, who can't exhibit self-control? Do you really think that you have been created to be this person who can't make a rational decision? That's not even true. And to say that is to go against the very thing that God says. He says, I created you in my image and in my likeness. That means that you have my character. That means that you have my nature. That means that you have my makeup. Now, granted, it may be challenging for you to be able to operate in that. And so that's why I've given you my word. But it does not mean that you've not been created that way. It does not mean that that the characteristics of who I am and the nature of who I am does not reside on the inside of you. And so what have you been, so the question today becomes is, am I operating in the way I've been created, or am I operating in the way that I've been conditioned? And those are two different things. And so in managing our emotions, we have to be able to, again, put things into place, put mechanisms into place that allow us to be able to sustain the freedoms that we worked so hard for. You worked so hard to no longer be this judgmental person. You've worked so hard to be able to be free in who you are. You've worked so hard to obtain the peace that you have. You worked so hard to obtain this level of maturity and understanding, and, to be able to be so focused now on the things of God and so zeroed in on your purpose and so zeroed in on your destiny. And if you're going to stay that way, you've got to put things in place. You've got to put things in alignment and put things in order that are going to help you to be able to maintain that. Self-sabotage is an awful thing. And me, again, I put my hand up. I have sabotaged myself in a lot of things. I've sabotaged myself in business because of decisions I've made. I've sabotaged myself in relationships because of decisions that I've made. I've sabotaged my own spiritual growth because of decisions that I made. And so you want to come out of the place of self-sabotage. You do not want to become a repeat offender against yourself. Don't be a repeat offender against yourself. Don't continuously make decisions that will shortcut or will cut off or what will inhibit or what will hurt or what will bring damage to the things that you've worked so hard to get rid of, the things that you've worked so hard to let go. Managing your emotions is just not, trying to be in control of so that you don't cry about something or that you don't get mad about something or that you don't, cuss about something. Yeah, that might be part of it. But also managing your emotions is putting things in place that keep you from going to where you used to be. Managing your emotions is not allowing yourself, is detaching yourself from the familiar. That's what managing your emotions is. It's detaching yourself from the familiar. So for me, anger was familiar. Cussing you out was familiar. Telling you off was familiar. Just cutting people off totally, that's familiar. That was the way that I operated. That was the way that was comfortable for me. That was the way that was, it's just what I did. It's just how I operated. But once I decided that I was going to give God my emotions and I was going to give him my heart and I was going to allow him to work that out of me, the familiar no longer became comfortable. And so in managing your emotions, the familiar can no longer be comfortable. Angry to the degree where you fussing and cussing and carrying on and you just all over the place can no longer be comfortable. Being unable to just take a moment and step back from a situation can't be something that's comfortable. Using things as an excuse to express yourself in a way that is not appropriate has to be uncomfortable now. And so if you're going to manage your emotions, if you're going to survive your process, if you're really going to grow, if you're really going to allow process to have its work and do the work on the inside of you that it needs to do, and you really receive the fruit of process, which is growth and development and restoration and healing and all of those things, whatever place process is taking you to, if you're going to get there, you're going to have to learn how to manage your emotions. And you're going to have to learn how to manage them from the perspective of, one, that I acknowledge them, that I feel them, and that I deal with them from an honest place, and from the perspective of where I've come to, how I've grown, how I've developed. I have to put some things in place that are going to help me to sustain and even go higher in where I am right now. That's it. Learning how to manage your emotions, getting away from self-sabotage, getting away from the things that hinder, that hamper, that deter, that disrupt, that disturb you from moving further along than where you are. If you are in a place of peace, what is it that's hindering you right now from staying there? If you're in a place where you are so excited about the things that God has done in your life and how far he has brought you, what is it that's going on right now that you have to disconnect yourself from so that you can keep moving forward? What is it? I had a conversation with a friend last night and she said to me, how do I move on? She's in a very hurtful place, and she said to me, how do I move on? And moving on is one day at a time. And it's the same thing with managing your emotions. It's one day at a time. Manage your emotions in today. And that is one of the things that I've had to learn, especially when it comes to process, is that I do process day by day. I don't do it process week by week. I don't do it month by month. I do process day by day. For to me, today is the day. I make the decisions. What decisions I make for them within the day. Whatever choices I got to make it within the day. Whatever I do within the day. That's how I keep things leveled. That's how I keep my emotions in check. That's how I keep my thoughts in check. That's how I keep my perspective in check. That is how I keep things in check. And that's one of the mechanisms that I use. Here's a perfect example. How do I manage my emotions? How do I keep it together? How do I maintain this peace that I'm in? I maintain it by doing today. I let today be today, and tomorrow will be tomorrow. God has prepared for tomorrow. And I'm grateful for that. But he's not taking me into tomorrow yet. He's taking me into today. And so since his mercies are new every morning, I'm good for tomorrow. Because I got some mercy that's waiting to meet me tomorrow. So I'm good for tomorrow. So what I just need to do is today. And so that's how I manage my emotions. That's one of the mechanisms that I put in place. Another mechanism that I put in place is choices about my relationships. Choices about the people that I engage in. And I'm very intentional about that. I'm very intentional about relationships. I'm intentional about friendships. I'm intentional about them, whether it be business, whether it be ministry, whether it is beyond just a friendship, whatever that is, whatever that looks like for me. I'm intentional. And you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. The Bible says that we should guard our heart with all diligence, for out of it come the issues of life. And so if you're going to manage your emotions, then you have to be intentional about the mechanisms and the actions and things that you put in place to be able to maintain and sustain where you are. There is nothing or nobody worth the joy and the peace and the comfort that you have learned and that you have gained and that you have learned to obtain in God. There's nobody worth that for me. There's no situation worth that for me. There's no situation or person worth me losing that. And so self-sabotage is no longer the order of the day. Self-sabotage is no longer the thing that I operate in. Now, am I saying I'm perfect and I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that I'm very careful and I'm very conscious now of the decisions that I make and the choices that I make, and I examine them, not to a fault, not to, just looking at it so hard and being so critical and so analytical. But I do take a moment to think about the choice that I'm about to make. I think about the decision. And how is it going to affect where I am? And how is it going to affect where I'm going? Again, be it business, be it ministry, be it personal relationships. Everything around me right now has to bring increase to me. That's a decision that I've made. That is something that God has shown me. And so if I'm going to manage my relationships and survive my process, everything around me has to bring increase to me. It has to keep pushing me forward. It has to keep elevating me. It has to keep pouring into me. It has to be things that make a deposit into me. And yes, I make deposits into my own self. But in order to manage where I am, in order to maintain where I am and to go even further, I have to put things in place now that increase me. I have to put things in place that no longer will allow things to enter in and take away. And I just wanted you to think about that for a moment. It's so important. It's just really, really important that you take the moment to think about it. The flying off of the handle, the getting discouraged, the getting frustrated, one day you up, the next day you down, the one day you're in, the next day you're out. One day you want to be their friend, the next day you don't want to be their friend. One day you want to be supportive, the next day you don't. One day you're You're encouraging to everybody you know. The next day you don't want to talk to nobody. You have to get all of that in check. You have to get that in check because you're going somewhere. And the things that God has prepared for you require that you be able to manage your emotions. How he wants to use you requires that you be able to manage your emotions. The business relationships that he wants to make for you require that you manage your emotions. The ministry connections, the divine connections that he has set up for you and that he's releasing, you need to be able to manage your emotions. The relationship that God has prepared for you. Some of you are single, you want to be married. Some of you are already married. Okay, but you're going to stay married. Just saying. You're going to have to be able to manage your emotions. You're going to have to be able to manage your emotions. And another part of being able to manage your emotions is being in control of what you say, in control of what you say about you, being in control of what you speak out of your mouth about you. Be in control of your emotions. Manage them. Put things in place that'll help you stay where you are, to maintain the freedom in God that you've worked so hard to attain and where you're looking forward to go. I am looking forward to so much that God wants to do for me. And I have learned through my process that I have to. It is a must. It's not, it's not an option. It's not something that maybe I maybe want to do, maybe I don't want to do. It's something that I have to do. Because if I'm going to prosper in business the way God has told me to, if I am going to prosper in my relationships and have prosperous relationships, if I am going to be prepared for, whatever it is God has for me, I have to be able to manage my emotions and be able to do it in an honest way and from an honest and genuine place. So what's the recap? No longer are we going to operate in self-sabotage. What we are going to do is we're no longer going to allow things to repeat themselves. We're not going to allow situations to repeat themselves. We're not going to allow people in our lives to repeat things to continue to repeat the things that they do that hinder us. And what we're not going to do also is that we're not going to be repeat offenders against our own selves. Don't be a repeat offender against your own self because of the choices that you make, because of the decisions that you make. If you are going to manage your emotions, put the things in place that are going to help you to be able to sustain and move even further along in where God has brought you. Put those things in place. Allow God to lead you in how to put those things in place. Allow God to lead you in how to operate and to implement those things. Sometimes we can move too fast in things and we decide, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut her off. I'm going to cut him off. I ain't going over there. I'm not going over here. I'm going to stop going to that church. I'm going to stop. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I'm telling you to be intentional. And I'm telling you to be deliberate in your actions. But what I'm also saying is that the mechanisms and the things that you put in place to allow you to be able to operate and to manage your emotions from a place that is honest, from a place that is genuine, and that allows you to stay and operate in the freedoms that you've worked so hard to obtain are just necessary. You have to do them. Managing your emotions is not that you don't cry, you don't get angry, you don't get frustrated. That's not managing your emotions. Managing your emotions is being able to feel them, being able to understand them, being able to understand where they come from, and then being able to put things in place again that allow you to be able to operate in the freedoms that you work so hard to obtain. I said earlier that, I've worked very hard to get to this place of joy. I've worked very hard to get to this place of peace. I've worked very hard to get here. And so there are things that I've put in place that allow me to sustain where I am. whether it be in business, whether it be in ministry, whether it be in relationships. I have made the choice that I won't be, a repeat offender of myself. We talked about earlier how we talk sometime and we say, we're wired to do certain things, or, that's just how I am. And I've said that about myself, that's just how I am. That's just how I do. But the Bible says that we've been created in the image and the likeness of God. And so we've not been wired to be angry. I was not wired to be angry. I wasn't wired to be this person who was not emotionally present. I wasn't wired to be this person who could not connect and who could not be open. I was conditioned to be that way. And I was conditioned to be that way because of experiences and challenges and circumstances that have come in my life. And so today, what I am challenging you to do is to move from this place that you've been conditioned to operate in, and to move in a place that's honest emotionally, that's honest mentally for you. Allow God to be able to help you to determine and distinguish between the two things. Distinguish between what's conditioned and what's been created. Again, yeah, we've been created in God's image and in his likeness. And can it be, because he says that he's given us his nature, he's given us his character. And so sometimes can it be difficult to operate in that? Absolutely. Because of the challenges and things that come. But it does not mean that we've not been created, or that we don't have the ability to be able to operate that way, because we do. But we have to make the decision that this is how I'm going to operate, that this is how I'm going to function, that I'm going to take on the mind of Christ, and that I'm going to move and I'm going to operate in that way. And so if I'm going to survive my process, if I'm going to get the results of what process is trying to get out of me, if I'm going to get to the place where process is attempting to take me, then I'm going to have to learn how to manage my emotions. I'm going to have to learn how to no longer operate from a place that I've been conditioned to operate from, and really operate from the place that God has created me to operate out of. I am grateful to God for what he has shown me about me. I'm grateful for how God has taught me, and he's opened my eyes and my understanding to know that I am not this, I was not, never was I this angry, disconnected person. That's not where I am now, is who I am. The person you see before you, that is who I am. This is the representation of Christ that he always wanted to come forward. This is the representation of him that he always wanted to be in front of other people. How I operated before, and how I acted, and how I responded, that was because I had been conditioned. That is because my circumstances and challenges and things that had happened in my life had given me a different perspective of who I was. And so I operated out of that perspective. But now, because I said, God, I want to operate from the way you say I am. I want to operate out of who you say that I am. Now you see who I am. And so I'm grateful to God for that. And so I pray for you all today, and I challenge you to think about it. Think about, am I operating from the place I've been created, or am I operating from the place that I've been conditioned to operate from? Am I a repeat offender of offending my own self because of decisions and choices that I make? Do I hurt my own feelings because of choices and decisions do I make? Do I frustrate my own self? Do I keep my own self stagnant? And I know, we love to go on a whole hater thing, and when you just mad at me or people hate me. Listen, when you do you, when you own you, it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. It matters no longer what people think. The only person that really matters, and the only person that is most important, and whose thoughts are most important, and whose opinions are most important, is the Lord. What does God think about the decisions you're making? What does God think about the choices you're making? What does he think about how you're operating and how you're operating? So that's my challenge to you today, guys. I love you all so, so much. If you want me to pray for you, if there's anything that I can pray about for you in this particular area of managing emotions or just process period, please feel free to inbox me. I just really want to help people to understand that, you know, this place of process is such a tool. It's a solution. It really is. And I never saw it that way. Of course I didn't. But it wasn't until God really, really showed it to me that process really is a solution. And that it's a tool that he uses to help us to get to and to walk out our purpose. And so part of your purpose is to be able to manage your emotions. Part of your purpose is to be able to operate emotionally and mentally from an honest place, from a well place. That's part of your purpose. You know, part of your purpose is not just the things that you do, but part of your purpose is being well. Part of your purpose is living and living well. Part of your purpose is living in this place that is emotionally and mentally honest. Part of your purpose is to be able to display self-control. Part of your purpose is to be able to communicate what hurts you. Part of your purpose is to be able to articulate what hurts you. Part of your purpose is to be able to be in control of what enters in and what comes out. That's part of your purpose. Being able to manage this great person that God has created and being able to present them before others so that they can see the glory of God, so that they can see the integrity of God, so that they can see the character of God. So self-sabotage is no longer the order of the day. We will no longer be repeat offenders of ourselves. And we're going to learn how to walk in and managing our emotions and putting those things in place that will help us to sustain where we are and to go even further. Again, I love you guys so very much. Please share and like this video. Somebody out there is trying to manage their emotions today. Somebody believes that they are operating from an honest place, and they really are not. Someone today is accusing other people of keeping them from where they want to go and where they want to be, when in actuality, they are self-sabotaging themselves. I thank you all today for joining me. I pray that I've said something that has helped and encouraged you, something that you can take a moment to think about, something that you can ponder. Some of the questions that I've asked, I pray that you go back and you ask those questions to yourselves and you take a moment to really think about them. And again, I love you all, and I will see you all again next week. Love you much. Have a great rest of the week, guys. Bye-bye.